We're now being joined by Ray Locker, who is a senior journalist and economic expert from Washington, D.C. Ray Locker, thanks very much indeed for talking to us this evening. Firstly, what do you feel about the U.S. ending preferential trade treatment for India? Let me just start with that question first.
Well, it's another in a series of kind of spasmodic moves by the Trump administration that seem to have no warning. Just a few days ago, he announced he was going to put a 5% tariff on all imports from Mexico until illegal immigration through Mexico stops. Most experts think that has no relationship at all to immigration, and it's left even a lot of Republicans wondering what's going on. So this seems to be part of that. Obviously, this administration and many in the Republican Party feel like, other countries have taken advantage of the United States in trade. There's some justification on that, but in most part, it's kind of a politics of resentment.
Right. Ray Locker, I apologize. There is some fluttering of your audio there, some sort of noise on your audio, so we'd just like you to, if you can just fix that for a second. And let me just... while we just check Ray Locker back for his audio there, of course, this is something, as Ray Locker was saying, has been a reaction that we've seen very often from the Trump administration, time and again, whether it's been Turkey or India or other allies. And, of course, the Donald Trump administration going hard on several countries when it comes to trade agreements, and India being the latest one for which the U.S. has ended that preferential treatment. All right, Ray Locker is back with us. I'm sorry for that delay. Now, Ray Locker, this isn't really, a good time to start a trade spat with India when you call it one of your most important allies in countering China, at least.
No, it's never a good time for a trade war. I mean, we're seeing that with China. The stock market's down like 1,500 points in the last 2 weeks because of these trade moves with China, on top with Mexico on top of it. Look, this is a global economy, and the United States depends on good trade relations with major countries around the world. India is one of them. It continues to be a rapidly growing market for the United States and an important strategic partner. It just goes to show that when it comes to this president, there are no real bromances. I mean, obviously he gets along with Prime Minister Modi, but that's, intermittent. So that really means little in cases like this. And it's a constant roller coaster ride for businesses in this country trying to figure out what's going to happen next on trade policy.
And Ray Locker, then where do you see, the larger relationship here between India and the U.S., given there are other tensions as well when it comes to sanctions on Iran and its oil, whether it's the H-1B visa issue here for Indians, and now this? It's becoming more and more of a difficult relationship and also very transactional, if I may add, because it's a give and take for the U.S. They agreed to support us on Masood Azhar and have also said, well, that happens, so now you have to pull back on certain of our criterias.
That's Donald Trump. He's a very transactional person, has been for more than 40 years in business. And that's how he operates. Long term, I think the relationship between the two countries will withstand this presidency, however long it lasts, whether it's, a year and a half or another 5.5 years. The Indian diaspora in the United States is strong and growing, rooted in many important industries here. The long-term trends are really good. And I think you see that based on, the number of Indian Americans who are growing in terms of economic influence and political clout. And, they look toward India for a lot of inspiration and a lot of markets. I think that continues. I think it would be suicidal for that to stop.
Right, and as as many people in America also believe that what Trump is doing is not all that bad for the domestic economy. Many certainly, of course, believe otherwise. But what do you think? It's okay for countries to look inwards when it comes to their own trade transactions, but Donald Trump, of course, is completely, ruining the trade market, the global market, by going after allies and opponents as well.
There's no indication that what he's doing is working. He does these tariffs on imported goods. It has not, revived American manufacturing in the way that he desires. You see what's happened with China. The agricultural industry in the United States, particularly soybeans, has gotten hammered at a time when that part of the country is getting pounded by torrential rains and flooding. Here comes another self-inflicted wound on top of that. people like Trump. The people who do like Trump like him because he says what he's going to do and does it, and he doesn't back down to people many Americans feel are taking advantage of us. I think most experts believe that's a misguided feeling. I certainly don't feel like India is taking advantage of the United States, but Trump and his supporters do. And so I think we're going to see more of that, regardless of the economic consequences, until Congress steps up and does something to stop him.
Mm-hmm. And finally, then, Ray Locker, let me ask you about China. What's going on there now? We believe that the Chinese have also decided to blacklist companies in exchange for the sanctions on Huawei.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a giant telecommunications company. It makes all sorts of switches that are vital to the internet economy. It makes a lot of equipment that no other company makes. So it's vital to what happens in the United States. And we're saying we're not going to let Huawei into this country, and we're not going to use its equipment. For China, that's a huge hit on a giant company there. So they're going to respond, which is to be expected, right? There's a legitimate suspicion among many people, regardless of political party in the United States, that Huawei has stuff embedded in its chips that, can be used to spy and take other information. I'm not an expert on that. I'll take their word for it. But it's still embedded in this economy, and there needs to be a way to work with that company and figure out what the Chinese are doing. Because if we keep going down this road where China bans our products, that's a huge market that's not getting any smaller. And where is the United States going to be able to sell its goods if it doesn't go to China anymore? We've alienated India and other trading partners.
That's a very important point. Ray Locker, thanks very much indeed for joining us this evening. Appreciate your perspective on America's trade wars with China, and of course also having an impact here in India as well. Thanks for that. Well, as we would